Welcome to Cambridge Photography Week on Demand, and we are talking to a series of photographers about projects and their businesses and finding out a bit more about themselves. And we are talking about how to build a photography business based on a passion of travel, wildlife, and culture, and a whole lot more. So I'm absolutely delighted to have Sumit and Oliver with me here today. How you doing, guys?
Hi, Chris.
All good? Yeah.
Good stuff. Thanks for joining. Know you guys are busy, so it's great to find a bit of time to chat. So let's talk a bit about the business, Summit. I guess it's Summit. It'd be good chance to start with yourself. Tell us a bit about yourself and about the business.
So, yeah, it's an interesting journey. I've recently started this business about 1 year ago. I have worked a long time in Cambridge in the semiconductor industry. So,
Mhm.
I was born and brought up in India. I moved to the UK around 96, 97, so it's quite a while back. But I kept going back every year. I kept my ties quite strong. And I worked a lot in the semiconductor industry, starting as an engineer, and then I worked in marketing and on the commercial side. And then gradually, I was in the background. I was thinking about this business, this passion, my hobbies, and so all of this has been a journey.
Lovely. And what's the name of the business?
So I decided to call it Instep Adventures.
Tell us a bit about that then. Why Instep Adventures?
So I think the whole idea of Instep Adventure was, as a concept, was being responsible, doing the right things as a business. So the theme that I was developing in my head was like, how do we travel in step with the places that we visit? In step with the environment,
Yeah.
in step with the communities that we visit. So the whole theme was doing things right, and that's where I got the idea. Okay, let's go with Instep Adventures rather than something else.
Yeah, lovely. No, that's really nice. And Oliver, tell us a bit about yourself then.
Yeah, I'm a professional photographer. Again, I sort of started off as a project. I worked as a sort of project manager for many years. I had a long corporate career, and then in 2014, I sort of thought, I was a keen hobbyist photographer. I thought I would try to become a professional photographer and earn money from being a photographer. And when I first started that out, I was just doing any type of photography jobs I could, weddings, studio work, some guiding, and then at the back end of that year, just by somebody tagging me on Facebook, I got connected to a company called Lights of Lapland, and I've been guiding for them since 2014. So I spend a big chunk of the autumn and the winter over in northern Sweden. And that's sort of guiding for Aurora, etc. But then I built up a relationship with Canon, and I've done lots of work for Canon, talking at the photography show, the bird fair, and so on. And I was doing one of those jobs for Canon, and that was sort of like a wildlife walk. And one of the customers on that walk was Sumit, and that's how I got to meet Sumit, and we started having a conversation, and here we are now.
Right. And you remember you chatted as well, didn't you, at the Cambridge Photography Show last year? So it's that for me. That's great. It's great that that's one of the reasons we've set up the show is just to enable photographers to chat with each other. And if anyone is interested in going to the show and haven't got their ticket yet, we are offering general admissions tickets for free, and that's going to be at the Cambridge Hilton on Saturday, the 7th of October. We do have free talks, opportunities to meet with big brands. We're going to have some pretty good deals. I've been promised best deals of the year, actually. And also we do have paid workshops available as well. So yeah, pop to the link somewhere near this video and get your ticket. Anyway, that's enough of the promo piece. But it's great. It's great you guys have started working together, which is like, I say, really nice to see. So What is it about the subcontinent that makes it such a great kind of canvas, so to speak, for photography?
Well, I think there are so many things going on in the subcontinent. In terms of the pluses, you could talk endlessly about, the kind of locations it has, the kind of photographic opportunities it has. And for me, it's always
Mm.
been the diversity. That it's not well, geographically, it's a big place. So you get diversity built in just because of that. You've got different landscapes, you've got different cultures in different states in India, for example. Then you've got Sri Lanka, which is quite different. It's similar, but quite different to India. And then you've
Mm.
got Nepal and Bhutan and places like that, which are, again, very unique in their own way. So the topography, the landscape, the way people dress, the cuisine, languages, it's all so different that as a photographer, it's almost a never-ending set of opportunities to follow whatever style of photography you may have. If you're a street photographer,
Mm.
if you are a photographer of landscape, if you're a photographer who focuses on wildlife or bird life, um, the opportunities are quite diverse. Whereas most places in Europe, you do get to see very good locations and opportunities, but they tend to be
Mm.
not as diverse. So the biggest thing for me is that it's a area where people often, maybe in Europe they may have opportunities, but they are not as different. So it takes you out of your comfort zone as a photographer and gives you chances to do things that you may not have done before or may not have photographed before. So there are some
Mm.
unique challenges that come with it, and there are some, huge potential rewards for people who want to take their photography to the next level.
A kind of extra sense of adventure, must
Yes,
come.
absolutely.
Maybe that's connected with that feeling a bit outside your comfort zone. Europe is, European countries that much closer, and it's just a EasyJet flight away, isn't it? Or any other airlines are, of course, suitable as well. What's your kind of most memorable moment? If you think back at moments in the subcontinent, moments that put a massive smile on your face when you've had a camera in your hand.
I think that's a difficult one, primarily because I traveled extensively, even when I was a child. So, giving you a bit of family background here, like my father was an amateur photographer, and he was a
Okay.
professor of English at the Delhi University. But his true hobby and passion was history, architecture, and photography. So he has written quite a few books um, on this subject and taken all his photographs himself for the book. So when we were growing up, essentially all family holidays used to be something that he was working on. So the
Mm.
advantage, in hindsight, you realize it in hindsight. You don't perhaps realize it at that stage when you're young. But by the time I had left school, I had seen more of India than most people will in a lifetime. And I was always in the
Brilliant.
company of someone who loved taking pictures. So the whole concept of lights and angles and time of the day was all sort of inbuilt into our holiday planning. So we want to go to
Mm.
this place because that's where the light's best in the morning. And we don't want to end up there at 3 o'clock in the afternoon when the light's not that good. So all those kind of
Mm.
things were part of the background and growing up. And when I started doing my own photography, so I had lots of wow moments as well. Going back to your question, sorry, I digressed a bit. So going back to your question, I think
No, that's good.
tiger photography for me was a big sort of challenges um, to start with. And I remember going
Mm.
on lots of tiger safaris. I think I might have gone to at least 15 tiger safaris before I saw my first tiger.
Oh,
So
really?
there's
Wow.
a lot
Okay.
of failure um, simply because I wasn't doing things right, or I was doing things the sort of the normal way. As a tourist, you go to a wildlife park and you just pay your ticket, and you think you'll be in luck. And quite often it doesn't work like that. It's a lot better now, but I'm going back 10, 15 years ago, and uh, tiger populations were not really thriving. In fact, they were being challenged in most national parks in India. And in those days, sightings were fewer than they are today anyway. But also because I was a ranked beginner. So for me, the journey of seeing my first tiger was one of patience and repeated visits. I used to go on weekends to Ranthambore, which is the nearest park that is to Delhi. So I'm still like a
Okay.
6 hour journey away. So we used to go weekends, and it was a few weekend trips before we actually managed to see tigers, and then to be able to learn how to take decent pictures. So the whole you first start with a small camera because that's what you have for a general holiday, and you then try it out in a wildlife situation and think, oh, this is not that good, I need to upgrade, and you then buy more kit and you get better at using that. So I think for me, the wow moment started coming after I'd been through that phase of just going there and putting myself out there, almost like you buy yourself a lottery ticket, when you go on a wildlife safari. Um, so that was the first time I saw and I was able to take decent pictures. That was a big wow moment. And on the cultural side as well, there are so many places you visit which are beautiful, um, and you just feel like you don't want the holiday to end. You know.
I'm getting a sense of the reasons why you set up the business, but tell me a bit more about the kind of what is it? What is it that made you want to set up this business?
So I have been, as I mentioned, I've worked in the semiconductor industry for a long time, and I was enjoying myself over the years. I've worked with lots of good people, lots of good mentors, um, and I always sort of, as I was building up all the business skills, management skills, uh, the idea slowly started growing that I should do something that relates more to my hobby, because things were getting a bit, you can say, not stale, but repetitive. And I was finding myself more
Okay.
and more looking forward to the holidays. Where am I going to go next? I want to go and see this place or that place, or I want to photograph tigers or leopards or elephants or birds or whatever. So I had this idea on several holidays that I got a network of good guides that I used to use for my own trips. And then
Mm.
I used to come back from holidays, talk to my friends and colleagues, and they were all excited. Okay, hey, I want to do something like that. So it grew from there that actually you could help people organize their own holidays, and I was able to give them advice. Okay, if someone wants to go somewhere, I can tell them where to go, where not to go. Just help them out with a bit of planning. And when I when I had my own network of guides in wildlife reserves, it it all sort of started becoming a bit real. That if I wanted to
Mm.
do this myself, if I wanted to um, create a business out of it, then the foundations were already being laid over years. And then COVID happened. So a lot of people did a bit of introspection during COVID, and evaluated where their professional life was going and how it related to their
Mm.
personal goals or ambitions, if you like. And at that time, I had a very interesting conversation with a mentor of mine who almost casually, and I think we were talking about something else, but he was talking about this book that he had read on Japanese philosophy called, Ikigai. I don't know if you've heard
Oh
of it.
yes, yeah, I've heard of it.
Uh,
Yeah, yeah.
and so I um, bought myself that book because he was like full of praise for it. He said, "Oh, read it. It's a wonderful concept, and it's It helped him a lot. So I read it, and slowly all of these pieces started fitting together in my story. That for those who are not familiar with ikigai, it's a very simple principle. Like a lot of these Japanese philosophies, they put things really succinctly. So it build in ikigai, you basically look for four things. You know, so the aim is to do something that you love, something that people are willing to pay you money for, something that you're good at, and something the world actually needs. So at this
Yeah, lovely.
union, the intersection sort of these four spheres, you get a vision for what you may want to do.
Mm.
And I think travel, photography, wildlife were all the things that I wanted to do, was I really keen to do, and I was getting better at. I wouldn't say that I'm an expert in any of those things, but I was getting to a level of competence where I thought, okay, I have some sense of confidence around it now. And in terms of doing travel the right way, that was something the world clearly
Mm.
needs. It's not just that I do it; a lot of companies do it, and that's a great thing. So, talking to the network of guides and wildlife ecosystem people at the grassroots level, I could easily get a sense of what were the things that companies were not doing right.
Mm.
And when I was traveling, I often used to talk to fellow travelers who came from Australia, America, Germany, UK, to India, and just chatting to them. You meet them in the hotel, or you are sitting with them in a safari, and you just talk about their experiences. And I was I was able to judge that some things are not right, or at least some things can be done better to give these people a better holiday experience. So from all
Mm.
of those things, it just came together with that ikigai philosophy, tying it all together and saying, look, this is something that is worth doing. And personally, the timing felt right after spending a long time in the semiconductor industry and thinking, right, I've got myself quite a few of the business skills. I did an MBA a few years ago, and in the sphere of your day-to-day job, you may feel that you're not using some of the skills as much as you would like to. So
Mm.
once you start doing things for yourself, then you're wearing so many hats. So from a professional and personal learning journey, this has been great because you learn so much and you have to rely on yourself doing so many different things that you become you know an all-rounder, and you focus on so many different things, whether it's just the technical aspects of setting up a website, whether it's the business aspects of managing all your
Mm.
finances and your cash flows, and uh, your tax, and you're talking to your partners, and then there's a lot of you know getting to know people, getting to make relationships. Like I met Oliver,
Mm.
and from those kind of conversations, to be able to grow a random conversation with someone you've just met, to working together, to collaborating, to finding common ground of interest. These are the kind of skills that I really thought, well, it's a perfect vehicle for honing
Yeah.
all of those skills.
Oliver, there's must be some similarities there. I mean, you set up, so nearly, you're not far of next year's your 10th anniversary, isn't it, of
Oh,
being
yeah.
in business?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean,
well, so there must be things that ring true.
I mean, I think we spoke about it earlier, and I think that's about having a passion for what you're doing, and it also ties into what Sumit was saying about those principles. For me, I am passionate about macro and wildlife photography, and well, just all photography really. I mean, I do all different types of photography, from astro to macro and different things in between. And I'm passionate about using
Mm.
cameras. I don't know what it is about doing photography, but I think it speaks to the inner geek in me, and because you're
Mhm.
passionate about
Yeah.
it, I think it sort of drives you to trying to be good at it, and then once you can demonstrate good results, it's that iterative wheel, if you like. It's funny because when in my corporate job, I used to work in process improvement. I was a sort of senior project manager in process improvement.
Okay, all right, yeah.
It sort of follows on from that, really. Somebody once gave me a piece of photography advice, and it's a piece of advice which has stuck in my head the most. And it sort of what they basically said to me was, what do you do when you think you've taken a good picture? And I was like, well, I'd sort of move on to another subject. And he was like, no, it's wrong answer. He's like, look at that picture and think to yourself, what could I do to make that picture better? And then do it. And then look at the picture again and think, what could I do to make that picture better? And do it. And then don't stop with that subject until you can't think of anything else to improve. And I think, that's how I used to work in business. And that little sort of tip was the thing which drove my photography the most. But it also relates to, how you sort of work as a guide really as well, and how you sort of build relationships with other big companies, etc. To Sumit's example, I think what you learn in your sort of previous career really helps set you up in terms of set yourself either up as a photographer or a photography business.
If we kind of move into the space of, like, if someone's thinking about going on a trip and say go into the subcontinent, is there any kind of advice, top level advice you both give, so they can kind of, make the most of that experience?
Yeah, I think there are lots of tips that you could give, but I think the general advice that people, I mean, all photographers, and this is valid for all locations, is to just take your time. Quite often when we are on a holiday, we are, switching between modes of, let's say, relaxation at a beach, where we want to not do anything, we just want to unwind, and then, or we have a sightseeing or cultural holiday where we're looking at different things on a day's itinerary. And I think photography is a funny one, because you need a little bit of time to take pictures which are a little special.
Yeah.
Especially in the subcontinent, where a lot of tourists will visit, the most popular sites. For example, they'll visit the Taj Mahal. They'll go to Delhi. They'll go to the Golden Triangle, or they'll go to Kerala, and these are very beautiful places. But they've also been photographed a million times. So if you want a nice holiday picture, of course it's easy, because it's almost the hard work's done for you. The backdrop is there. All you have to do is make sure your finger is not in front of the lens, and you've got a good picture. But then to go to the next level, as Oliver said, what can I do better? You look at your holiday pictures and say, oh, okay, that's nice, but what can I do better? So there are some standard things like making a little bit of effort, perhaps waking up a bit early in the morning, because a lot of these places, the tourist attractions, they're very popular. So if you end up there at 11 in the morning, there are a lot of people. And while it's good if you want to include a lot of people in your photos, but sometimes you don't. So just being there at 9 in the morning instead of 11 is something that I personally feel gives me good pictures, because I can choose my angles a bit more carefully, and I can get clutter-free images, if you like. And then there are some, if you are serious into photography, there are some technical things like, the light in the subcontinent is different from European levels. So with things like the particulate matter in the air at certain times of the year, you get a lot of haze that affects the quality of the image. So, but that's getting too technical for most people. But that's something that you learn as you go along. So you need to use your UV filters a bit, or make sure that you are doing photography at certain times of the day. But generally, yeah, if you're just going on a holiday, if you just want to have nice pictures, I would say take a bit of time, look beyond the obvious. Yes, it's amusing when you see pictures of chaotic traffic, for example. There are some themes and stereotypes that people go for. Oh, look, there's a cow on the road, but we don't need another picture of a cow on the road, right? So
Yeah,
look
true.
beyond the
Yeah, very
easy,
true.
the low hanging fruit, and look at the people. Look at the culture. Try to understand culture. As with anywhere in the world, when you start talking to people, just saying hello to them or learning a word or two of the local language, so you can just sit and talk to the guy who's serving you a cup of tea, at a roadside vendor, for example, and just chat to him for 5 minutes and slow things down, and you will see things in a different perspective.
Yeah, lovely. I mean, it could easily, when you're talking about this kind of stuff, it makes me think of, busloads of tourists turning up, all offloaded off the bus, everyone
Yes.
taking their shots and then back onto the next thing. That
Yeah.
thing about taking time is really important. And then particularly that curiosity, which obviously then feeds into the thing about you guys asking the right questions when you're talking to clients and, finding out, what's right for them. But Oliver, you're about to spend a good chunk of time in northern Sweden. So kind of anything to add, when it comes to if
Well,
someone's going away, thinking about
yeah.
doing something themselves?
Key thing for me is sort of planning. I will say for northern Sweden. I'm going to be there for 6 months. In that 6 months, I'm going to see a lot of full moons and a lot of new moons, and the amount of people who come and they're like, "Oh, I didn't realize it was going to be a full moon," and it's like, yeah, it really. And
Right.
don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with a full moon, but it does have an impact on your photography. If I want to
Yeah.
go to somewhere and I want to photograph the stars, I want to go when it's a new moon as opposed to a full moon. If I want to photograph landscapes at night, I actually want to go when there is a full moon because it illuminates. So it's just that, what do you want to get out of the trip? And are you planning on going at the right time? That research makes a massive difference. The other thing as well for me is when I'm going and doing my own photography and I'm going to a different country, is do I want to sort of spend a day at lots of different places, or actually do I just want to take that week or however long and invest it in one time? Yeah, sometimes I find I can be, if I just go and have a day at each place, you're not going to get the most out of that place because you can plan things from home and you can work out whether there's going to be a full moon or not, but you're not going to understand the intricacies of it. It's like anything. If you're looking for new wildlife or etc. You've got to get your eyes in and things like that. You might find this path is better than that path for this certain type of species. So again, do you want? But then on the other side, you're going to have all of your time in that one location. So again, there's no right or wrong answer. It's just that understanding those differences and what applies to your trip.
Always this dilemma of I, I want to see 10 things, not one thing. But if I
Yeah,
if I spread myself too thinly, then maybe the traveler in me is happy, but the photographer isn't.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, staying in the
Yeah.
same
Nice.
location for a longer period of time, just increases your chance of learning that area in more detail, building more
Yeah.
relationships, getting more information, and increasing your chance of, getting that killer shot, as it were. Um, in my view, I mean, certainly I'm going to be spending 6 months in northern Sweden, so in that time, you've got a chance to see all types of interesting things.
Thanks, guys. Yeah, that's some really useful advice there, I think, and definitely worth taking on board. Let's finish off with back to the business, and also you've got some tours coming up. So if anyone's interested, wants to find out more, tell us a bit more about that.
Yeah, so well, Instep Adventures, we've got lots of trips and tours coming up to India and Sri Lanka, and Bhutan as well over the winter and next year. So people can already book in advance for next year's holidays. I'll be at the show. I'll be talking more in detail about all of these tours. And look out, if you're at the show, look out for special discounted pricing. Um, but I think one of the tours that I'm most excited about is the one that I'm planning with Oliver. And this is a photography tour to one of India's best known tiger reserves in central India. So me and Oliver
Okay,
will be spending about 10 days in total. But then we'll have like 7 days of wildlife safaris in Bandhavgarh, and it's a great tour for
lovely.
anyone who's interested in wildlife and photography, wants to take their photography to the next level with the help of Oliver and I. So it's scheduled for the middle of April, and we hope to have a very small group of people very keen on photography or wildlife to come along with us and experience this.
Good
Yeah,
stuff. No,
I mean,
it's
it'll
yeah,
be super exciting as well. I mean, tigers are such a photogenic, amazing creature. I mean, I love
mm,
photographing mammals. I've just come back from a trip up in Scotland photographing otters. So yeah, it'll be fantastic to see these tigers and help people improve their photographic skills. And we won't just be purely talking about photographing tigers. There's lots of bird and other wildlife. I mean, I will be taking a macro
Absolutely.
lens with me. And yeah, the idea being sort of safaris during the day and then looking at images during the evening, providing feedback, getting, again, a bit like that, what I was talking about earlier, how could we improve this photograph?
Yeah.
Talk those things through, and then, work that through over the going days of the tour. It should be super exciting. I'll be going
Yeah.
from minus
brilliant.
35 to the other side of the spectrum as well. So to Sumit's point earlier about
Yeah.
acclimatizing, I will definitely be having to acclimatize.
Yeah. I, I think it'll be at least 40. So
Yeah.
prepare for at least 38 to 40.
I have
Um,
done that switch before from Thailand back to northern Sweden. I went from plus 38 to minus 38. Oh,
but it's not as
yeah,
So
super.
difficult.
make sure you don't catch a cold. Wow, that's a massive difference.
I think when you are out in the wilderness, it's not as difficult as you think it would be, because there's always a breeze, and we live. If you're used to living in a city, temperatures have a totally different feel about them, because of all the concrete around us. But when you are out in the jungle, I've experienced myself. Temperatures of around 40 to 42 degrees centigrade don't feel as high. You come back and you think, oh, was it really? Okay. You know,
Yeah,
um, it's still difficult if you're not used to it. But I think the rewards, that's the best season for seeing tigers. And not just tigers, all wildlife. So Bandhavgarh is a really special reserve in India because geographically it's compact, but it has a very high number of tigers. There on top of that, there are another 30 tigers who use that as a migration path from one place as a corridor. So your chances of seeing tigers is very high. I mean, my last trip there was amazing. Like we had a safari, almost every single safari, we saw more than one, sometimes more than two or three tigers in every safari. And the terrain is quite different. Your photographic opportunities are quite different in different locations. So you see tigers sitting in water or hunting or just lazing around if it's too hot. So it's a really spectacular place. The bird life is fantastic, and lots of other smaller mammals. I remember um, we had an encounter with a sloth bear who literally was running parallel to our vehicle in the foliage, and then crossed the road, the tracks in front of us, and then went around. So we had like a 5 minute sighting where we could see the bear, walking slowly and then running faster, and something spooked it, and then so you get all of these kind of wildlife uh, opportunities, if you like. Um, and believe it or not, there are now actually um, elephants in Bandhavgarh. They never used to be, but they they're using it as a corridor, and they decided that they liked that place, and they decided to stay there. So there's a part of this forest where you can actually see elephants as well.
Well, that's brilliant. Thanks very much, guys. Some good chat there, and really useful advice. And if anyone is interested in finding out more about many tours and exciting tours that are available, then pop to the link somewhere in this video. And also, anyone wants to watch any other videos as part of Cambridge Photography Week on demand, then they'll be on the YouTube channel. Or they'll be on the Cambridge Photography Week website somewhere near this video. And anyone that's come along to the Cambridge Autumn Photography Show on Saturday, the 7th of October, at the Hilton on Downing Street in Cambridge, then go grab your ticket. General admissions tickets are free. Thanks very much, guys. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Well,
Thanks.
cheers.